This video was made possible in part by my American friends at the Crash Report. See crashberry.com for more info. I moved to Portugal 3 years ago, and since then, many of my friends have been thinking about following in my footsteps, moving from America to Portugal. One of the first questions they ask me is Portugal a safe country?
Is it safe?
They want to know about crime in Portugal, and the answer is yes. Portugal is a very safe country.
Yes, it's safe. It's very safe. It's so safe you wouldn't believe it.
But I want to tell you why it's safe, and a few other things you need to know about crime in Portugal. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to the first of what I hope will be many videos about life in Portugal. My name's Dennis. I'm a former journalist, PR pro, political operative, musician. I've worn many hats. 3 years ago, after a near-death experience with COVID, I packed up and moved to Portugal, and I love it. It's been great. A lot of my friends ask me all the time, what is life like in Portugal? So I thought I'd start a YouTube channel and tell them and everybody else what it's like and give you some information that you may not find anywhere else. Maybe it'll help you decide if you want to move here too. So if you want to join along, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. I'm supposed to tell you that. And let's see if we can answer your questions, give you lots of news and information about Portugal, and have some fun. Much of what you'll see and hear on my channel can be found in much greater detail in my book, which I happen to have a copy of right here, also called Hola Portugal, Why I Moved to the Land of Sunshine and Sardines, and How You Can Too. It tells the story of how and why I moved to Portugal, but also offers tips and guidance for anyone thinking of moving here, like the best places to live, dealing with the language, the weather, food, all the facts. You can find the book on Amazon, either in paperback or as an ebook version, and I'll leave a link down below so you can grab it. So today I want to talk about crime.
Is it safe?
I get this question a lot from some of my American friends who, let's face it, like a lot of Americans, don't really know much about Portugal. Americans are very America-centric. Only about 30% of Americans have a passport. They don't know if Portugal is like Switzerland or Venezuela when it comes to crime. It's strange because most of my friends are fairly worldly. They could name the leaders of countries like England, France, Germany, even Turkey, but Portugal, they draw a blank. So the answer is yes. Portugal is very safe. According to the Global Peace Index, Portugal is the 7th most peaceful and safe country in the world and the 5th safest in Europe. By comparison, the United States is... Wow! That's not to say there's no crime in Portugal. Of course there is. But it's important to take a look at the types of crimes that are common in Portugal, particularly compared to the US. First, the crimes that most people are concerned about are violent crimes. And in Portugal, violent crime is very rare. So are gun crimes. Now, I grew up in the state of Maine. In square miles, Portugal is almost the same size as Maine, although Portugal has 10 times the population. Maine likes to brag about having the second or third lowest crime rate in the country. Portugal's overall crime rate is a bit higher than Maine's, but the murder rate in Portugal is even lower than Maine's, less than 1%. That's pretty amazing. The last place I lived before coming to Portugal was Washington, D.C., where the murder rate is around 23%, 23 murders for every 100,000 people. So you can see why I feel a lot safer in Portugal. And gun violence, unlike in the US, is almost unheard of in Portugal. You can own a gun, but they're sensibly regulated and you have to have a specific reason to own one. And strangely, self-defense is not one of them. I mean, in a country with such a low crime rate, what are you defending against? I really notice this when I go to outside concerts or events, festivals. There's almost no anxiety about someone pulling out a gun or violence breaking out. It's just people having a good time. And believe me, people in Portugal know how to have a good time. I also notice it when I watch the local news. In Washington, when I turned on the news at night, all the top stories were about crimes, murders, assaults, arson, drugs. Here, the top stories are almost always what you would consider feature stories or lifestyle stories, you know, a new museum opening or someone won the lottery or a restaurant is coming to town. There's political news, and in the summer you see a lot of stories about forest fires and an occasional drug bust, and political corruption is somewhat common. But for the most part, the stories are kind of soft. Now, coming from the US, where violent crime, especially gun violence, is quite common, this takes some getting used to. I read on a local website one day about some inmates who had escaped from prison in Lisbon, and I immediately thought, oh no, killers on the loose, lock the doors. And then I read some of the crimes these criminals had been charged with: money laundering, trafficking in minor quantities, insult, driving without a license. I mean, what were they going to do, break into my house and insult me? And speaking of prisons, Portugal puts way more emphasis on rehabilitation and reintegration of inmates than the US does. In fact, life sentencing has been abolished. The maximum jail time that a criminal can get, even for major crimes like murder, is 25 years. And the death penalty was abolished long ago. You know, that tells me like harsh penalties like the death penalty and life sentences do almost nothing to deter crime. Portugal has what in the US would be considered very light sentencing, and yet it has one of the lowest crime rates in the world. On top of that, drugs have been decriminalized. All drugs, even heroin. You can still face penalties for having possession of small amounts of drugs for personal use, but it's handled administratively, not as a criminal offense. You'll be sentenced to rehab or a drug treatment facility, but not jail. As a result, the incarceration rate in Portugal's jails has come way down, along with overdose deaths and addiction rates. I'll leave a link below to a lengthy article about Portugal's experience with decriminalization of drugs. Okay, so like I said, it's not like there's no crime in Portugal. There is. But what are the types of crimes that are committed in Portugal? By far the biggest crime is property crime. This would be theft, burglary, robbery, and it includes a lot of what people in the US would consider petty crimes: purse snatching, pickpocketing, theft from motor vehicles. These make up over half of all crimes committed in Portugal. There were recent headlines about crime increasing in Portugal by 8% in 2023, and some politicians are trying to exploit it, blaming it on immigration. But again, it's important to look at what crimes are increasing. The crime that had the biggest increase? Abuse of credit cards. The second biggest was fraud, including cyber fraud. So again, unless you own a bank, not much to lose sleep over. And the latest crime figures show a decrease in crime in Lisbon for 2024.
So you can walk around almost anywhere in Portugal and feel safe, like your neighborhood or a park, or walking along any of Portugal's beautiful beaches. I'm overdressed.
Now, there's been an uptick in domestic violence over the last few years, possibly pandemic related, something the government needs to address. And there are some sketchy areas in Lisbon and Porto, the major cities, where you probably want to avoid, especially late at night. But again, the worst that will probably happen is you'll get your iPhone nicked or your wallet stolen. The bottom line is Portugal is a very safe country. And if you live in the US and you're ready to get away from the crime, the violence, the mass shootings, and the political environment, Portugal just might be the place for you. So thanks for watching. And if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions on what you want to see in future videos, leave them in the comment section below. Till next time, até já.